Golden Axe 3. We're finally away from the adventure games that have plagued me for 2 successive episodes of this retrospective. Back to basics. Back to what's actually fun. Golden Axe 3, though, is actually kind of an interesting case. 3 was first released in Japan on June 25th, 1993, with Sega actually having no intention to release the cartridge outside of it. You actually had to import this game if you wanted to play it on its initial release. 3 did eventually worm its way over to the States via the Sega Channel, a cable television-based subscription service which hosted a rotation of Genesis games you could play every month for a nominal fee. Talk about a company being way ahead of the curve with subscription services, holy hell. Even if it didn't work out, this is actually an impressive idea to me, especially for 1995. 3 also eventually landed on a bunch of those Genesis game collections, which was how I actually played it for the first time, so it did manage to proliferate itself across the world, even if Sega hadn't planned for it to do so. What surprised me in my initial research stages on Golden Axe 3 is this one actually got blasted by critics that reviewed it. 5s and 6s out of 10s all abound for this game. Is it really that bad though? How can you screw a beat-em-up up? I wonder how, but honestly, after 2 crappy adventure games, I'm willing to take even the worst side-scrolling beat-em-up ever. Crap, I have to review Badass Babes at some point. Story. This game actually takes place in a pre-established timeline instead of setting up its own. Hooray! After the events of Golden Axe 2, Gilius Thunderhead realizes the Golden Axe has caused way too many problems here in the world and decides to give it back to the gods. Kinda rude to give a gift back, admittedly. Gilius hops onto a boat with the axe, but unfortunately while it's in transit back to Olympus, the boat sinks and the axe is lost amongst the waves. Unfortunately, things got worse when the axe ended up in the hands of Damned Hellstrike, another evil giant, and one with the most badass name in quite some time. Hellstrike uses the powers of the Golden Axe to assemble an army and to take over the land of Splash Hill, which kinda sounds more like a Sonic level versus a fantasy medieval kingdom, but I digress. Seeing all this shit going down again, Gilius Thunderhead knows he has to do something, but he himself is far too old to charge into reckless combat anymore, and both Axe Battler and Tyrus Flare have passed in the years since Golden Axe 2. Gilius now puts out the call for warriors, and 4 brave new heroes rise to challenge Damned Hellstrike and his minions. Kane Grinder, a barbarian whose tribe was massacred by the forces of Hellstrike. Sarah Byrne, a member of a traveling entertainment troupe and the sole survivor after a massacre by Hellstrike's forces. Proud Cragger, a half-giant buried underneath the earth by Damned Hellstrike, but was freed by Gilius Thunderhead. He shows his gratitude now by joining up with our heroes. He also kinda looks like the ultimate warrior.
Load the spaceship with the rocket fuel! Load it with the wires!
And lastly, Kronos Evil Late, a human transformed into a furry by Damned Hellstrike. A cruel, evil fate if there ever was one, to be honest. He joins up with the heroes in the hopes of being returned back to his human form. As an aside, I don't know why Kronos has the nickname of Evil. If he was some noble that betrayed Splash Hill and sold him out to Hellstrike, but got transformed by him in a double-cross style scenario, I'd get it, but they never really elaborate. Maybe he's evil just because he's a furry, I don't know. Additionally, Kate and Sarah are understandably mislabeled as Axe Battler and Tyrus Flare in certain Genesis collection ports of Golden Axe 3. They're very aesthetically similar to their predecessors, so I get it, really. Before the heroes set out to kill Hellstrike and bring peace to the lands, though, that dastardly villain hits the heroes with a mind control spell. Gilius is only able to save 1, or 2 if you're playing co-op, from the mind control, and that's where the game proper begins. You pick your hero and begin your quest across Splash Hill. So what's new in this go-around? Mechanically, Golden Axe 3 still functions the same on a basic level. It is a beat-em-up after all, no need to change the winning formula, but the game does add a good amount of features to your movesets. You still have your simple attack combo, your get-off-me defensive strikes, throws for repositioning, running attacks, and jump attacks, of course. Every character has a sweep now, though, performed by pressing down and the attack button together. This instantly knocks opponents back into the ground. You can now block by holding back and your attack button together. That's very useful, obviously, since it actually comes out almost instantly. So as long as you have good reactions, you can block most of what your opponents will throw at you. You also have these forward-moving power attacks, which do good damage and knock opponents down too. Each character also has mechanics that are unique to them. For instance, Sarah and Kronos have the ability to double jump. What's its use? I'm not entirely sure. Cragger has a devastating jumping grab that does an insane amount of damage to foes, but it's also the lamest looking thing I have ever seen in a beat-em-up. Mike Hagar pile drives you. Proud Cragger just kinda lays you down for a nap. Sleep well, minion. Every character also has a special move, which has a specific input needed to execute it. Kane has a ground wave fireball, Sarah hurls her sweet scimitar, Cragger throws multiple tornadoes out in front of him that can cover his short range, and Kronos can blank a ball. All these additions add a good amount of depth to each character when all is said and done. Though, if I could complain, I'd definitely say balance is all over the guff when it comes to these characters, good god. I want to say they tried to keep the same dichotomy of speed versus strength versus range, but it doesn't really work out like that, unfortunately. So Sarah is the fastest and most agile character. Kronos is also in the same category, but with slightly more damage, though he's lacking in a ranged attack with the rest of the cast. Kain is meant to be the most balanced character, and Krager is obviously meant to be the biggest and strongest, while also being the slowest with the shortest range, too. Kain, however, is without a doubt the best character you can pick. He has insanely long range, decent attack damage, a safe, incredibly quick diving attack, and he can basically challenge every enemy in the game since attack speed seems similar for each character. Compare that to Krager, who is absolutely shit by comparison, and me saying that says a lot, since I always play big beefy characters in games like these. Krager has horrible range, and his diving attack is incredibly unsafe for some reason. Hit or block, you're just stuck sitting on your ass for a few solid seconds, just waiting to be punished. Sarah and Kronos are decent too, at least, especially considering Sarah has jumping kicks that can be comboed from, and Kronos' Blanka Ball special is actually pretty solid too. Regardless, Kain dominates everybody else in this game. I haven't mentioned it yet, but Magic unfortunately took a tiny downgrade from 2. 3 for some reason decided not to bring back the charge mechanic from 2. Even stranger, magic is also standard across every character now. No more advantages and stronger magic for someone like Sarah. Which, while not a bad thing, I do think it's kinda odd they decided to give everybody similar magic strength levels. I like the scale it used to be on, but no more, I suppose. To stay on the topic of magic, it wouldn't be a Golden Axe game if people didn't have their own rad schools of magic to use, and this one delivers in spades. Sarah Byrne uses fire, of course, and even has the rad dragon the fire users always have. Kain has water magic, once again, still a downgrade from violent explosion magic, but still pretty cool. Kronos uses what's called fog magic, but it also has lightning in it, so I don't know if that's 100% correct. And lastly, Krager uses earth magic, which basically just consists of dropping rocks on people. What else can you do with earth magic, really? Saving the best for last, though, Golden Axe 3 actually added double team attacks to the game.
Trust me.
When 2 players get close to each other on the same plane and weight, their characters will trade nods, and then you can execute a simple double team attack or a double team magic attack. These double team magic attacks are obviously super devastating, and effects-wise are some of the craziest stuff I've seen in a Golden Axe game. Water Dragon? We got that. A giant rock golem that stomps you to death? Got it. Oh yeah, how about literal death? Also, not to be outdone, crashing a sun into the earth. I thought a dragon was the best we could get, but damn, this game really brings the lumber. Versus mode is here too, with the only standout feature about it being that you can play as sub-boss Eve. Woohoo. Also returning your course are the mounts. There's this weird purple snail with a short tongue, and a green snail with a slightly longer tongue. Very exciting. And there's these 2 dragons, this yellowish one that bites and throws people over his shoulder. Terrible. And this red one, which shoots a ground wave fireball. Regrettably, there's no mention or appearance of the chicken leg whatsoever. Rest in peace, little buddy. After picking your character, you'll begin carving a path through the forces of Damned Hellstrike. Location-wise, I can see why those reviewers criticize Golden Axe 3's environments. I don't think they're bad by any stretch, but they're nothing we haven't seen before. Villages, bridges, and crystal caves, oh my. The good news is, though, the branching paths return in this game. You have 8 levels, 5 of which are split in half for different routes, which, as I always mention, gives the game some replayability. The paths also have different sub-bosses to do battle with, so they give you a unique experience with each route. Enemy-wise, though, Hellstrike has an entirely new bunch of warriors to set against you, none of them being seen in previous games. They do come in various colors, though, and some more advanced enemies will be able to bust out techniques you didn't see the softer ranks using. But the club guys have fire breath. The Amazons are still here, but they use maces and look way buffer now. Nice. They're also dubbed Vanity, not sure why, truth to be told. Additionally, thieves make their return, but look like tiny men instead of horrible creatures this time out. Villagers appear too, and if you rescue enough of them, you get a free life. I don't know why all of them are represented by the feminine symbol, though. I guess the skeletons could technically be counted as returning too, but they're called dead frames in this game, and they are obviously not human. More lizard man than anything. They're just as annoying and brutal as regular skeletons. They have stacked movesets, and it is crazy difficult to fight them. Long gone, though, are the long moans and the Henningers, now replaced by simple spearmen and these big tubs of lard wielding clubs. I do love the fatty's belly bump attack, though, especially with the boom sound. It's actually kind of funny to get hit by it. Knights are not fully armored, but are a bit slower than their previous incarnations when it comes to attack speed. You can actually just straight challenge a knight since their swing is always slower than yours, so just walk up and mash at them. The sub-bosses are also back and just as vicious as they used to be. Mustangs replace the bad bros and look like the offspring of the glorious Sigmar Heldenhammer. And then there's, these guys. Ego L Sheep. I fought a lot of enemies across a lot of beat-em-ups in my days, but these guys are actually ridiculous. Mainly because if you try any sort of funny moves against these Shokan goats, they lariat you instantly. How many beat-em-ups are out there that have enemies with invincible attacks like yours? And since this is a Golden Axe game where the invincible attacks cost no health, they use this attack and they use it judiciously. Running attack, lariat. Jumping attack, lariat. Spin to win. I hated fighting these guys more than the 2 real bosses in this game. Well, I guess there's 3 bosses, technically. The characters you don't select at the start of the game will appear in certain routes under Hellstrike's mind control, and beating them sets them free, of course. Outside of Kane's busted ass, they're really not too difficult to deal with, truth be told. Speaking of those 2 real bosses, the first one you'll run across is Eve, a giant man-eagle. He drops the first knight you ever fight on you, and you actually fight him twice, once during your journey, and once outside Hellstrike's castle. After you beat him that second time, it turns out he was the king of Splash Hill, transformed into a beast man by Hellstrike to do his bidding. He begs you to save his daughter before God smites him for wearing his persona out in public. Shit, Hellstrike, if you could do that, why don't you just lightning me too? Must be a daily power or something. But we're here at Castle Hellstrike now. Time to carve up the last minions and face down the big man himself. He looks pretty intimidating, truth be told, but honestly, he's actually not that tough. Sure, he's built like a brick shithouse and has a pretty impressive array of moves, broad axe swing, ground magic, and even a diving attack, but he has one fatal flaw. He can't block the cross-up. Attack while jumping over him, and he gets hit every time. In fact, almost every enemy is incredibly vulnerable to this technique. Knights seem to forget they can block, and Mustangs can clip you with a running attack, but 90% of the time, you will get them. The only enemies that are immune to this are the Ego L Sheep, they just lariat you after all. You hit Hellstrike with a schmicks and he dies. You save the princess from Hellstrike's clutches, and peace returns to Splash Hill. Hooray! You head home, but as it turns out, you didn't get the axe back, so everything still sucks. Yeah, this game has a bad ending and a good ending. I looked into how to get the good ending and saw about 10 different theories, so I don't know which is the accurate one, but I got it doing this. I saved all my mind control friends, I only lost 1 continue on my way to the castle, and I didn't die during my fight with Hellstrike. If you do that, you'll be drawn back into the castle by Hellstrike.
Well, what do we have here? The heck? That's Sting! From the top of the United Center!
Who's looking a lot more greener, like Deathbringer now. He mocks you for not knowing the power of the axe, and attacks you again. He has magic attacks now, which make him a little harder, but he still can't block the cross-up. This time he dies and your character leaves, but takes a moment to scuttle back and grab the axe before zipping out of the collapsing castle. The day is saved for real this time, and peace can return to the lands. You know, heading into Golden Axe 3, I was kind of expecting the worst with the reviews I read, but honestly, this one's pretty good. Though that is coming from someone who's just happy to be away from the terrible adventure games. The additions to the game mechanics are nice, and while I don't like losing the charge magic system, I think double teams and all your other moves make up for it. The levels are nice, even if they're kinda stock, and the music, well, the music's nice too. I think all the new enemies are great in terms of design, and only one of them is irredeemably annoying to fight. All in all, I think Golden Axe 3 is a perfectly fine addition to the franchise, much more so than Warrior and Legend were. It's not Revenge of Death Adder, obviously, but still a perfectly fine game. I don't know why reviewers were so down on it. I wouldn't have put it beneath a 7 out of 10 myself. With 3 out of the way now, tune into the next part of the Golden Axe Retrospective, where I get to pull double duty, a Golden Axe game that's also a fighting game. A most joyous occasion for me. As always though, I'm HadesManticore. This channel is City State Manticore. Thanks a bunch for watching, and leave a like and a comment if you enjoyed. I'll see you all in the next one. Goodbye.